Welcome to the Pain-Free Movement. This channel is for those affected, frustrated or annoyed by musculoskeletal pain. Pain from injury, pain in joints or muscles, pain in backs and necks. This program has one simple goal: to help you sort out your problems. What is the single most important thing? I'm Max Kavanagh, a physiotherapist in Adelaide, South Australia. It's a world of confusing messages out there, and the single most important thing is your health. This program will address all aspects of healthy, pain-free movement, but with one goal: making it simple. Most clients come to us because of injury and the pain it causes them. Injuries come at a cost. The more significant the injury is, or the longer it goes on, the greater the cost. We're all aware that they cost us in time, fitness and money, but it's actually much more significant than that. Consider how we are affected socially. Most of the activities we do have a social component: walking with a friend, training with a group, employment with our workmates. When we're unable to do these, we miss out on the things we enjoy. And at varying stages of our lives, many of us have caring or parenting responsibilities. We can't do these roles to our best when we're restricted with injuries. So all in all, you could say that having an injury certainly takes the smile from our face. In fact, it also takes the smile off the face of those we love and those we interact with every day. So it's understandable we want it to heal, and the quicker the better. So what is the single most important thing we need to know about helping us heal? What should we do? Last week I explained the phases of the healing process: bleeding, inflammation, healing and recovery. And we explained how the body does this itself. But we can enhance or hinder it. And as we've just discussed, it's in our best interest to make sure we do everything we can to help it and make sure we don't disrupt the process and delay our recovery. Seems common sense, but there are many ways we can inadvertently do the wrong thing. So today I want to go through the healing and recovery phases and spell out exactly what to do and what not to do. Having started to deal with the bleeding and swelling phases together following our main message last time that early treatment with the RICA regime is the priority: rest, ice, compression, elevation and referral, let's help ourselves heal and recover as quickly as we can. Now, every injury will vary in severity and body parts involved, but let's look generally at what we can do to help the next phases. Once we start turning around the early inflammation process, the pain will not be so constant or severe. Remember, the 5 signs of the inflammatory stage are redness, heat, swelling, pain and loss of function. It's the loss of function that we're most concerned with now. There are 3 significant ramifications from losing the ability to do our normal activity. When we lose the normal function of a body part, we start losing mobility, power and control. And the loss starts very quickly. When we suffer pain and want to avoid it, of course the tendency is to stop using the area and guard it. We may intuitively think using it will cause more damage and we fear the injury will worsen. And to add to that, we very often hear common advice to go home and rest. It's even still heard from many in the medical fields. But this is actually the worst advice you can get. If we stop moving, we get stiffer, weaker, and lose our normal patterns of movement. We've heard the saying, if you don't use it, you lose it. This is particularly relevant to recovering from injury. Let me explain each of these 3 factors. Firstly, the full range of movement of our body parts is predominantly related to the structure of our joints and the soft tissue restrictions at the end of range. The body adapts to the average loads put on it in our daily routines. If we reduce the range of movement we go through, then the tissues of the joint will tighten. We start to lose range. We lose our mobility. Secondly, our muscles behave similarly. Our muscle strength is directly related to the demands we ask of it. Wasting is the word given to decreasing muscle bulk, and studies show the loss of muscle bulk is very quick. So a dramatic drop in activity brings about a dramatic loss of strength. And thirdly, when we stop using our body in the normal way, the messages to our nervous system change. Our brain receives different information about patterns of movement. As we've discussed in earlier episodes, the brain will adapt to repeated change in the feedback. This means we start to change the normal patterns, which changes the way we function. So The greater the variation from how we usually move, the greater our new habits will become. The longer we take recovering from injury, the greater the change in all three aspects. So healing and recovery are further delayed the less active we are. You can see now why severe injuries take so long and so much effort to get back from. So rest definitely does not mean stop moving. It only means stop aggravating activities. And remember, we don't want to push into severe pain and aggravate the process. So I remind you, no pain, no gain is wrong. The explanation I use for clients here is no discomfort, no gain. Use your pain danger signals as a guide to what you can do within that context, rather than do nothing. So if we have injury and want to limit the loss of mobility, strength and function, what do we do? Mobilization, stretching, massage, support, heat, exercise, persistence and patience. Mobilization means keeping the area moving often and in small amounts. It's very important. The only time we immobilise an area now is if we have stability issues such as fractures or dislocations. Otherwise, as we just mentioned, we want movement to help our healing. We can do active mobilising with movements we can voluntarily do. So if perhaps you have an elbow injury, you could gently straighten and bend the elbow a few times and repeat that often each day. Or if you have a calf strain, similarly, you could gently lift your foot up and down and do circles. You can also do gentle passive mobilising, which are motions we can do to the joints, like gliding or rotating your sprained thumb with the other hand, or for a sprained ankle, cross your leg and glide your heel with your hand. Once the tissue healing has progressed, we can start stretching. This will help regain range of movement, but to start we need to be gentle and not push into severe pain. As the injury heals, the range can be increased gradually, but not too quickly. Remember, your tissues are laying down scarring and we want that to strengthen. Stretching can be done as a passive hold at the end of range, such as extension movement for a wrist sprain, or hip flexion for a hamstring muscle strain. You may have heard of other stretches too, such as dynamic stretching or PNF. In fact, stretching has been the subject of plenty of research and discussion over recent years, and worthy of a program later on. Massage is a valuable tool in healing. It provides touch and soft tissue feedback to the brain, and massage is helpful for blood flow and decreasing sensitivity. You can add this simply by using a moisturiser you have at home. Even gentle soft tissue kneading will help. And your injury may need support. If severe, the injury needs to lessen overloading while increasing activity. A support bandage, use of crutches or a walking stick may be beneficial, but generally we want to rely on them for the short term. Applying heat packs once past the initial inflammatory stage will also help. Using a warm pack will help blood flow, and increased temperature means increased rate of reaction. Warming the local area for 15 to 20 minutes a few times a day will give benefit. As we enter the recovery phase, we can build our exercises and activity. But now there's another tricky problem. There are basically two main motivators for us all, pain and pleasure. And pain is the biggie. The irony here is that as we're healing, the pain eases away and our motivation changes. So at the very time we need to devote more time and effort to regaining our function, our motivation drops. And as we're getting back to our usual activities or workloads, we don't have as much time to do the exercises. We get distracted. So with exercise, we need to be really concise and targeted. We don't want to waste time on exercises that aren't of best benefit. And we also need to know which and how many, etc. So getting advice from a great physiotherapist here will save you time and make sure you don't inadvertently do the wrong thing. It's also another huge topic to cover in more detail later. So the recovery phase requires patience and persistence. If we don't focus on this phase, it's likely we will have a degree of residual problems. You may end up with ongoing weakness or poor control or sensitivity. This is one of the main reasons we see people with ongoing issues. People with recurring back pains, persisting shoulder issues, dicky knees. If we want to get back to full function, the motivation has to be that goal. Keeping your motivation focused and be persistent and patient with yourself. Your task this week is to plan your own management. Look at your diary and make time to support your healing. Look back at those methods I've discussed today and prioritise what it is you can fit in. Do your best to help your body. Write it down. Make it happen. Perhaps set alarms or reminders on your phone. Maybe use sticky notes on the mirror. Put up a plan on the fridge so the family can see it. They can encourage you to keep on track and offer what assistance they can. Plan it today. What can you make happen in your day? Mobilising, stretching, massage, support, heat, exercise, and a good dose of persistence and patience. Write it down and start taking action. And let us know how you're going by posting a comment below. As you can see, there are indeed lots of things we can do to help ourselves heal as quickly as possible and get back to what we love and want to do. But with all I've spelt out, what is the single most important thing? What is the single most important thing we need to know about helping ourselves to heal and recovery from injury? Motion is your friend. Movement for life on every level. Movement gives feedback to our nervous system. Movement keeps our body mobile. And movement keeps our control and our strength. Just resting and allowing time for your injury to heal is not in your best interest. Motion is your friend. And next week, we'll talk about quick fixes. If you found this video helpful, please give us a thumbs up, ring the bell for the next episode, hit the subscribe button, and join the pain-free movement, because the single most important thing is your health. I'm Max Kavanagh, wishing you good health and pain-free movement. And I'll see you next week.